did not come here to tell you stories or to tell you lies or to misrepresent things to you. It doesn't help Liberia. It doesn't help anybody. The reality must be told. If you don't know something, you say, I do not know, I do not have an idea. You can go and research it and find out. Now, after discussions last night, most of my partisans and supporters were listening, and most of them have given me hints and to respond to some of the questions. For example, the question of Mr. Yang Smythe. He's a natural citizen of naturalized citizen of Liberia, and he has a Liberian wife and Liberian children, in line with the question that was asked yesterday. And also, Madam Massa Washington asked a very important question. I was overzealous yesterday and overreacted. My apologies, madam, to you and your family for if I was too hard on you, but you asked a very good question on the transformation of the military wing into a bias-based political party. That was interesting, an interesting scenario for me to elaborate on, but I think maybe we'll have another opportunity to do that. But it's a very interesting and important question. I missed that, and I should have elaborated on that. My apologies again. Thank you.
Okay. Now, another question I'm concerned about is the issue of justice and reconciliation. And I just want to get your opinion. Of course, the decision will be made by us later, but we always seek other people's opinion in these areas. Here we are in a situation where all of this has been done in our country. People have decided to organize or assist in the establishment of armed groups to rise up against elected constitutional governments and overthrow them for whatever reasons they may have had in their minds. Yet we find also that in the process of doing so, all of us, everybody shares some kind of burden in the process. Either if you're on the side and you just cheered, then you know you may have had some connection. So how do we let these chips lie now that we're talking about the future? Do we just let it be bygones, the old Liberian way, or do we actually look after those who bear the greater burden of the responsibility and have them bear some higher penalty for their wrongs? So again, this is just a question of, you have input to it, you can give it. If not, no problem. Eventually we have to deal with it.
Well, that's very good. That is interesting and thrilling, but charity begins at home. The TRC have the TRC, you are, most of you here are young people. I don't think you have the wherewithal or you have the exposure or the knowledge to be able to reconcile all the problems in Liberia. The problems in Liberia, some of them date as far, you see, in Liberia, no one should tell you that Liberia was a peaceful place before the settlers came. I made mention of that. This place was a war zone for so many years before the settlers even came. The Dangolos were fighting, the Basso and the Pele were fighting, the Nimba, and the Bong, the Gils and the Manos had war. The Southeastern group and the Gils and the Manos had collective wars. There were tribal warlords and tribal chiefs that fought other groups. The biggest war in Liberia was the war that was fought between, whatever came between the Americo-Liberians and the indigenous people was very clear that the Americo-Liberians came in their desire to stop slave trade. And stubbornly so, most of the traditional people were not interested in stopping slave trade because that was a way of livelihood and a way to support their kingdoms. So people say, oh, the Bassa people sold their land for smoke fish. How could they? Today, smoke fish is more than 50 cents, and an acre of land, farmland, you can still buy for 50 cents. So the whole issue in Liberia was not land, or one group of people taking other people's land. You have to look at these, all these realities are on the ground from history in Liberia. You have to be knowledgeable to sit in a position where you think that you can harmonize all these things. There are rifts existing right now as we sit here, in families, in neighborhood. The first thing is people must learn to love their neighbors. That's the first thing. I always tell people, you can have faith. I'm one person who have enormous, my faith, the frequency of my faith is very high. Why? That's why I'm fearless. Because my love for God is so great till my faith, the frequency of my faith is so high. I do not think about faith on the line with the average person. Because my love for God is so much. He has provided so much and done so much for me. And everything I ask God to do for me, he does. Because he knows that I love him. The Christian society, the religious community, some of these people pretend to be religious people. But they are the ones that are not preaching spiritual inspiration. This is all financial, economical. People are now practicing on the streets with bells and microphones because they practice after the people of the church. In years ago, the churches in Liberia, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Baptist Church, they preached spiritual inspiration, and the churches were rich. They had money. They had schools, they had institutions, they had boarding houses and whatnot. Today, all the churches are poor. God no longer provides funds for them to be able to preach those ill doctrines that they are preaching. These things are sentimental, and Liberians, we must solve the problem from the root. Reconciliation must come in reality, from your heart. I'm prepared to reconcile with someone if I've wronged them. Someone else must be prepared to reconcile. One of the national leaders of our country said in the first interview, I think when they were elected, they asked, Madam, what is your greatest shortcoming? And so someone, to a leader of a country or someone who's in leadership to say, my greatest shortcoming is that I find it very difficult to forget and forgive the past. Now when you hear a national leader or people in a country say that, you have to watch it. That's why we're going in a negative direction. You see, we must come together, tribes, even in neighborhoods, and tribal people must get together. There must be a willingness to unite. We ask the churches and things, the Muslim community and whatnot, to preach proper doctrines of faith. I mean, to people, so that the younger generation now no longer fear God. Those people don't fear God. You see, there was a time during the NPFL war that I don't care how you attack the NPFL, they will not fight on Sundays. Taylor had a rule out, or order, that no one fight on Sunday. So most of his positions were overrun on Sunday. If Ecomoc wanted to overrun a position, they would wait until Sunday and they would attack, because they know that nobody's going to shoot a bullet. People come into the country, people with maybe Muslim background, not blaming anybody, but NPFL could not even shoot at a church. There was no church that was looted or vandalized or anything of that sort. But all of a sudden, other groups came in, but maybe they didn't have the Christian orientation. They began to murder nuns and murder officials of the church and things like that. These kind of things happened in the revolution. It brought about a lot of problem. And it's very difficult to heal some of these wounds. It's very difficult for someone to look at a person who murdered his father or mother in cold blood, and they come and tell you, say, my man, I'm sorry. And he might smile with you and say, yeah, my brother, no problem. But you know, inside, if he gets the first opportunity he gets to slay you in a corner, he might do that. So the concept of spiritual inspiration is a concept of indoctrination. Liberians need to be reorientated to the process of loving one another, the process of national development and national interests. You need a whole reorientation process even at the national government level. You need to re-educate and reorientate Liberians to the process of even tax collection, the revenue agents, the appraisers, the evaluators, the custom officers, the property evaluators should be reorientated at a national seminar to a new concept of national interests and how to generate revenue. Because, how can you have an agent on the field with so much power? He goes to a store and someone has $1 million worth of goods in the store, and he declares that the person have $100,000 worth. The government can only charge taxes on what the agent on the field declares. So our national government lose millions of dollars in revenue because of false declaration by the surveyors on the field. You have another group of Liberians at the Freeport who are waffingers who go on board the ship to inspect containers when they come. All that man has to do is I can tell him I have 5 containers, is in lap number 4 on the vessel, and when he gets up there to inspect, all he has to do is to take a plier and break the seal on the containers, my 3 containers. And when my 3 containers arrive, once the seal is broken, I will declare that the goods are damaged or short-landed. The insurance company will pay me for that, and I wouldn't pay taxes on the short-landed and damaged goods. So the government does not get revenue, and I clear the containers intact and put them in my store. This profiteering is happening in Liberia because of the lack of the will of Liberians to the national development interests of the country. We have to reorientate our people to that. You have to, the churches have to come in and help Liberians of well-meaning Liberians should come in and help to try to reorientate, provide means of livelihood for our younger generation, open up the country, get investors, build industries around the country. There's nothing wrong with, I had a concept during the Taylor administration, if there was peace and support for the government, it would have worked very well, called exportable development, where we can go out into United States and Europe, Italy, Germany, and buy used machines. Liberians leave from here and go to America and come back. There's never been one Liberian that go to America and come back rich. Everybody come back from America, come here to come and hustle government or to come and look for a job. There's never been one rich Liberian man coming from America. If you know them, name them. They go stay 20, 30 years and come back, and their credential is that I've been to America for 20 years. What did you bring back? Nothing. Some of them bring one car and drive around. After 6 months, the car is broken down. You see them walking around the streets. Their suits now fade up, their shoe eating up, and they come from America. When you can do something and buy a small-scale industry, the same money you use to buy a used car can buy a small-scale factory that can make matches, and you can use wood, free wood from the timber industry to make matches in Liberia. It's the same price of a car. You can buy a factory to make toothpick, a used factory to make toothpick. Government should embark upon an extensive economic program to put a small-scale or medium-scale factory in every one of the constituencies. There are 64 constituencies. One small-scale factory, $25,000, $30,000 in a constituency. That constituency is known for pepper, or is known for growing cassava, or is known for growing something, and you put a factory there to create jobs in the area so that the people can plant their farms and show that they have somewhere to sell their products. Coffee mills all over the country. 64 small-scale factories and 15 medium-scale factories at the county level, at the county capital. That's another concept of economic development that will secure the Liberian people. This is not $2-3 million investment. The government can spend $4 million on buying some jeeps for a few top shots to drive around the city on these bad roads. But they're not prepared to apportion $2 or $3 million to invest in small and medium-scale industries to take to the constituency level. These are the citizens of the country, they are the owners of the land, and they are entitled to a better life. And we must get serious with that. Our generation must provide these means for the people. We must provide reconciliation and healing for our people, lest we go down in history as the most destructive generation of all times. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've given us many good ideas for reconciliation with regard to reparation, rebuilding, and national healing. But the thought keeps lingering in my mind, can we carry this out without the issue of justice being balanced? And considering your personal life, you just said you're a man of God, and you believe in God, and you know many of his children were killed during this war, and though you didn't do it personally, you were part of the machinery that carried it out, even though by the overzealousness of many people. So I was wondering, do you have any personal thing you would like to say to the Liberian people as we close? That would be my last concern to you.
Well, yes, as you close, because the chairman still have to ask a few questions, and I know his direction where he's coming from. But yes, you see the concept here of reconciliation and healing. Yes, I agree, and you said that I agree that there should be some form of justice. To be clear and concise, there should be some form of justice. But you cannot do that, you cannot take that justice, you cannot do that under the type of term of reference of the TRC. Now you can do that if you talk about a war crime court or something of that sort. Then you can start talking about justice. I would be the last man to talk about injustice or supporting injustice, because I have been one that has been unjustly treated for 6 years on travel ban. It is a very difficult thing for you to say, but I want to put out the journalists are here and the international press is here, but I know that I want to tell you that the United Nations is using international taxpayers' money to perpetrate injustice. And the international taxpayers should know about this. The rule of law is now being processed for 6 years. You keep prominent citizens of a country on travel ban and you have done nothing about it. So they are perpetrating, this is an act of international gangsterism perpetrated by the United Nations. You cannot perpetrate injustice in that manner. You are using international taxpayers' money to keep a few people in jobs to protect travel ban and asset freeze. All your ICGL, just a bunch of friends that they have employed. They've been working for the last 6 years, traveling all over the place. Every 3 months they come to Liberia to reassess the issue of travel ban, because they're not going to make any suggestion, because their jobs will be at stake. In the day they say travel ban is lifted, they'll have no more jobs. So what do you expect those people to do? They are the catalysts of injustice, and such things should be eradicated from the face of the earth. You cannot have an international community that talk about justice and fair play and the rule of law and take people and put them on travel ban for 6 years without any charge or any court trial. This is unfair. If they have any beef, let them take the beef to the court and we'll be there to meet them. Or else, they should not take our silence to be a sign of weakness. We are not weak, but we have been given the time, and we're looking at the government to make some step forward for the future, because such things have a tendency. It's the same thing: injustice, segregation, isolation, oppression, suppression, and indignation that cause all the trouble in Liberia. Are we Liberians prepared to stop the oppression? Are we prepared to stop the indignation and suppression and isolation of one group? As soon as a group is elected into office, they isolate everybody else. They become a tribal thing, it become a clique thing. Well, just a group of people. It happened during Taylor administration also. I told you many times people came in to lie on other people, and I was there luckily, and I dispelled those rumors, because if I'm not there, maybe it would sink. And many things came to being with just on misrepresentation and misinformation. Are Liberians prepared to sacrifice now and take up the mantle of national healing and reconciliation? Are we prepared to commit ourselves to the national development effort? Are we prepared as a generation that's educated to provide jobs for the younger generation? Are we prepared to open up our arms to welcome them into the fold of national leadership? Are we prepared to share the wealth of the national government with the citizens of this country? Or is it just designated for a few group of individuals who claim to be national leaders? Are we prepared to embrace the traditional leaders and to get their input in the history of Liberia? Are we prepared to open up to them because they are not educated? Are we prepared for them to come in and tell you how the culture of this country has been desecrated by commandos and warlords? And those people we have to apologize to. Those are the first group of people. They are the first line of attack. When any group come in, they come from the rural areas, come to the border and begin to attack the poor innocent citizens who are from the rural areas, the traditional leaders. Some people went into the poorer society, the Mendeme society, the Boer society, the Bodio society, Bush, and damaged them because they had bullets, they had guns. Are we prepared to reconcile with our traditional leaders? Are we leaving them out of this thing here? Are we ignoring the sentiments? They are the one who feel strong. They are the one who have secured this country over the years. They are the one who have settled tribal disputes. And the president of this country, Topman, used to have executive council where he used to solve some of these problems. And the tribal chiefs used to participate fully. Now the tribal chiefs are handpicked. You don't bet. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, oh, you're not a chief. Yes, I'm a chief. I'm a traditional chief because I'm born of lineage, traditional lineage. My grandmother was a chief, my grandfather was a chief, and I'm a traditional chief. My sons are princes. And you cannot erase that. They don't sell traditional chieftaincy in the market. You cannot go and buy it from anywhere. A chief is a chief. You're born of royalty, you're a traditional chief. You have been coronated as a traditional chief. Are we going to do the same for our people? Are we going to allow people to handpick and elect chiefs when traditional lineages have been told from generation unborn? We cannot realign the natural power structure of nature. We cannot realign the history of this country. We have to stay online. Our generation, with all our education, we should come back and walk chalk line and stop innovations and stop changing things to suit our own selfish desires, to suit our own government and governance plan. We should stop bringing the international community to manipulate our people and make them look like second-class citizens. We should stop bringing half-educated Europeans to come here and develop the capacity of our people. You can bring a graduate from a university in 1988 and you tell me he's an expert on Liberia. How can you be an expert on Liberia? You're no expert on Liberia. You have not lived here for even 2 years. You just got a degree in the 80s there. Someone all finished school in the 70s. You say you're expert on Liberia. You gave us millions of dollars, billions of dollars for capacity building and employing substandard Europeans to come and vacillate our country, going into interior, checking on our culture and eroding the very fabric of our society. And you call them people who come here to help us. We must stop this concept. This is a concept of neocolonialism. This is political independence minus economic, or political independence and economic dependence. And we have to get rid of this concept in contemporary Liberia so that we can make a brighter future for our people. Justice is necessary, reparation is necessary, but the correct mechanism should be put in place to make sure that we implement that. Thank you.
Okay, well, I had asked whether you had any personal concerns to the people, but anyway, thank you very much.
I've expressed my personal concern. I took the 2 questions and answered it in one. Some of the things that I said here are very clear, and I think the hint of the wise is sufficient.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. To begin with, I just like your sense of what was happening. A revolution was started and then everything went out of control. Was it a lack of capacity to put things in control, or a lack of the will, be it political or military, to put things in control?
A part of both. Lack of the will of the Liberian actors to put things under control. I told you that you cannot control individual desires. There's no way. If you had gone about killing every soldier that raped, you would have maybe killed your whole army because it was the order of the day. Or kill every soldier that loot, you will go off killing everybody, because even right here in Monrovia, Commissioner came here and looted the whole country. And in fact, Commissioner Stewart asked about the generator from bomb mines. I got a little more information on that, where there was a request made by the NPRG to the IGNU government to get heavy fuel that was at the CST, the crude oil storage terminal at the refinery here, to run the generator in bomb mines and to give electricity to Bourgeois Island and bomb mines up to Kakata. And that concept was thrown out by IGNU, and when ECOMOG came in, that was part of their loot. That generator was too big to put on the back of any truck or any trailer or anything of that sort to carry. So it was carefully dismantled by ECOMOG and shipped out of here. I think it was part of the cargo on board the vessel that sank in the Tin Can Island port in Nigeria. Also, you say it was a lack of will on the part of Liberia. Indiscipline. The highest level of indiscipline goes on in our country at all levels. In homes, married, single, you name it, in churches, in government offices, in everything Liberians do. There's a high level of indiscipline and a lack of commitment. That is what is eroding the very fabric of our society. That is what eroded the revolution of this country, that was focused on removing a tyrant and installing a government that will represent the interests of the people. A government that represents a broad-based interest of the people have never been established since the tyrant was removed. Even the government today is not a broad-based government. Taylor government is not a broad-based government. We need to establish a broad-based government with active participation of all Liberians in the political decision-making of the country. We have come a long way. We have come a long way now that you have people from counties representing their people. That is a step forward, and bravo to the revolution that caused it, that led to the stability we enjoy today. But indiscipline is the hallmark. That was the key of what destroyed Mr. Taylor's revolution. Oversized, the revolution became too broad-based, too many people, every nook and corner. People just got involved, some of them because they wanted to protect themselves, others got involved because they wanted to loot other people's property, others got involved for vengeance and revenge.
In your opening statement, you said that all warlords should face a war crimes tribunal. I just like your consideration or definition of who a warlord is.
I didn't say that. Did I say that? Which in my opening statement?
Yesterday?
I said that what?
Oh, if you didn't say it, then it's okay.
I didn't say that in my opening statement. I know that maybe you read the papers. You see how the papers can misinform
I
people.
haven't read the papers yet.
But I spoke with a journalist on my way out during the break, and I made mention of that. I think he asked a question whether you think a war crime tribunal should be set up. I definitely feel that way, and if you want me to respond to that, I think a war crime tribunal should be set up to try to go through the same process you're going through now, but with a little more. Now, when you set up a war crime tribunal, you have to do a lot of research. You have to have things to indict people. You cannot just accuse somebody and say you're a warlord, so come to the war crime tribunal. Some people go there and disgrace you because they will employ the service of very strong and good lawyers. Some of these boys got money, and they will get the best lawyers that will come and defeat you. So you have to plan it well and make sure that you have the proper information and the proper research document and facts and statistics. War crime tribunal don't operate on hearsay or they say or the newspapers say. No. So that is another fundamental task that you would have to do that. It is necessary, it is expedient to heal some of the wounds because some of the people in this country want to see some kind of justice. They're still looking for the type of leader in Liberia that will bring some level of justice. Because most of these people who say they were warlords and had warring faction and formed warring faction are blaming Western capitalists or imperialist masters for setting up these things. You have to start the precedent from there. You got to find out the Western capital that encouraged the NPFL. You got to start the Western capital or the African country that established ULIMO and LPC, who financed them, who aided them to enter the country, and who did this, who abated them, and that all these people, some African leaders will have to come to your war crime tribunal. Are you willing to take the chance? Will you get the support of ECOWAS? Because there's an ECOWAS issue more than a Liberian issue. So it's a broad-based thing, it's a Herculean task, and you have to be ready for it. But it's a good concept, and I think it should be done.
You also said in trying to analyze the problems, especially initial problems of the NPFL, that almost every special forces member of the special force had his own private army of not less than 200 persons. There are some questions I want to ask about that. Firstly, were there members of the special forces who were of other tribes other than citizens of originating from Nima County?
Yes, they were. You had about 4 or 5 of them. One was Putu Major. He was from Sino. Paul Nimlen from Sino and Seboyu. I think there were about 4 or 5 or 6 of them who were from other counties. I think one of them was from Monserrado also, but that did not make any difference. They were still as powerful. Each of them were as powerful as the other, and they had none of them was a subordinate to the other. They were all equals, and that was another confusion, because you cannot have so many equals of that type of that magnitude and expect to have stability.
According to one of our witnesses, the former adjutant Moses Blah, there were about 100.
Moses Blah was Inspector General. He was not an adjutant. He was Inspector General of the NPFL. That was his position.
Okay.
A Major General.
Okay. He said there were about 156 special forces, and 79 of them died in combat. That left about 77 of them with private armies of 200 or less. So we're talking about 77 different forces having their own private armies of something around maybe 15,400 in total. I mean, if that was the situation, then it's clear that that was an overblown movement, like you said, that definitely had to go out of control. So from the very inception of the NPFL, it was the creature of its own situation.
Yes, let me tell you, how do I put this? the team, a group of followers of the special forces grew as they came. When they left Nimba, they didn't have such size, but as they came to various counties, as the various counties were overrun, friends met their friends. Students, for example, when they passed over Coddington, every special force had an intellectual bodyguard. You know, some student from Coddington College who was there to write a paper and to read, to issue an executive order, and or as a clerk, or as an adjutant, as you mentioned, So their sizes grew, the size of their forces grew as they went from county to county. Some guy might have 25 bodyguards. When he went to Sino County, some of the bodyguards saw their brothers, and some of them saw their sisters, some of them had saw their girlfriends, and they put them in arm, and they joined the team of bodyguards. So some of the special forces did not even know who or the names of all their bodyguards, because they were not people that they themselves recruited. They were people who liked their style, maybe liked the way they dressed, and joined them, and liked where they were assigned, and thought that where they are assigned they could be able to get more gravy, and so they joined that special force and followed him up. So but one thing that I said, and I repeat that, with all this thing that you hear, and all this strength and all this force here, one thing I can say very clearly, it was not so much distraction. It were not so many other warring groups and political leaders fighting for political office and trying to oust Mr. Taylor out and fight the NPFL and make them look like they are demons and whatnot. Taylor had the capacity overnight, within 48 hours, to disarm his entire NPFL force. One order he issued can disarm his whole group. But how do you do that? If there was a time that if the government of National Unity in Monrovia, IGNU government, was a group of serious people who tried to establish Monrovia, put in factories, and make Monrovia a free zone area where the economy is flowing, and forget about Taylor back there, and try to develop and improve Monrovia on its own as he was trying to do over there, the fighting would have subsided. They would have been preoccupied trying to build up the city, this little small peninsula. They would have tried to develop so many doctors and lawyers and things in this small peninsula. It was looking like a trash can because they are unprogressive people. If they had developed the place a little bit to come on par, then maybe you wouldn't have had this war. And at a certain point in time, Taylor would have disarmed completely his unit, because he could do that. When Taylor was ready to disarm ECOMOG in Greater Liberia, they were at 15 different locations. ECOMOG was in Buchanan, in Ganta, around the country. When he was ready to disarm them, in the night he issued an executive order. By 6 o'clock in the morning, every ECOMOG soldier was disarmed. All the MOADs, their uniform and everything was sticking, and most of them were in trucks. He was taking them to the border. One order, he disarmed all of them at the same hour by different units. So he had that kind of capacity and that kind of ability to even disarm his entire NPFL force overnight if he wanted to do that. But the need did not arise because he could be under attack any day. It was uncertain. That ECOMOG was bombing people in the air. You could see jet bombers flying indiscriminately and whatnot. So he did not take on that exercise, but he had that capacity. I want history to record that he had that capacity because he has demonstrated that over the time. Thank you.
No, thank you. You stated also that the MPRAG government had a percentage in the NHCC, that is a natural hydrocarbon company.
No, I didn't tell you that. I told you they had an interest in the hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon was 100% owned by me. I've risked my capital and my money and invested in it. I'm not a philanthropist, but I was there to help, and there was a profit. I had taxes to pay to the government. The government wanted $1.25 on every gallon. And if I brought in 1 million gallons, I had to give them $1,250,000. That was taxes. I had to pay it. If they told me to bring 10 pickups or bring 20 pickups or 5 jeeps or whatever, I would get the bills from Kama Africa or somewhere in Ivory Coast, and I would submit the bill to the Ministry of Finance with the papers for the vehicle, and they would give me a tax deduction. So I was paying taxes to the government, huge taxes too, because the government was making more money on a gallon than I was making in profit. And that was fair.
So it was a wholly owned private corporation?
Indeed it was.
Okay. You also stated that if former President Taylor had money, we wouldn't have been sitting here today.
Yes.
And in relationship to that, or as I may relate it, you also said that MPRAG was wealthy.
Yeah.
So I was wondering how was the capacity of the government eclipsed to such an extent it could not defend itself? Was it the penny effects of sanctions and embargoes at the time?
Indeed, the government at the time had a budget of, I think, $48 million. I don't think Taylor ever had a budget of up to $60 million because he did not want to declare a superficial budget. He told the Minister of Finance and Planning and all the ministers, the budget director, do not declare more than the taxes you can collect. Because I don't want no deficit. If you think you can collect $40 million, declare $40 million a budget, let's try to fight our way and operate within it. If I don't have money for my private trips or my private whatever, I will ask my friends, some of the head of states and whatnot. Other people used to help him a lot in his trips. Whenever he's traveling, they will send a plane for him to take him and things like that. So basically, yes, it is because the MPRAG had the capacity because they had taxes coming in, they had companies operating and whatnot. But there's an embargo. There was an embargo on arms. There was an embargo on timber. There was an embargo on diamond. There was an embargo on shipping anything from Liberia. So during Taylor administration, how can you have a government that is installed, recognized by international observers, an election held, and as soon as the government get into power, you clip all the wings of the government and organize a warring faction to start a war just 6 months after the government is elected? How do you expect that kind of government to survive, and how do you expect it to sustain itself? All you do is to make the Liberian people suffer because you deny them and deprive them of the use of their natural resources. Since when in the world have the foreigners come to people's country and tell them who to sell their iron ore to, or who to get your rubber to, or who to sign contract with? Oh, you cannot sign with this Spanish company, they are not good. You cannot sign with the other company, they are not good. We are the only good people, deal with us, and those kind of things there. That is what is happening in the world today. They say the world is a global village. There is one superpower, and this superpower thing that everybody should kneel down and bow to them, and they should take anything they want to take from you and kill any of your citizen, go kill that person. Oh man, we want to get you lay 100,000, but go kill Cyril first. You know, go kill you power first before we get you money, or beat your brother, or arrest your friend, before we get you money. All these type of preconditions are causing trouble in our country. They are dividing our people because if you arrest John Brown and wrongly, his son will come up next time and say he formed a warring faction. As soon as you get a little money, we say property, get money, form a warring faction and come and get you. That's how all the warring factions were formed. Suppression of the Mandingos, they formed Ulimo. I think Shikone can tell you more about that. Suppression of the Guilds, they formed NPFL. Oppression of the Crown, they formed the LPC. And these kind of things, you see, that's how it went. You see, some other people went around the world, Muslim people went around the world lobbying for hundreds of thousands of dollars that Muslims in Liberia are being oppressed. Some of them have still not accounted to the Muslim people for the hundreds of thousands of dollars they collected in the name of Muslims. But we leave that all to the TRC. I think they will ask those kind of questions too. Thank you.
The event of April 12, 1980 remains an unraveled mystery. And in your statement, you said that you were very close to members of the PRC.
Indeed.
I would like you to be a little more specific on some of those you were very close to, and then maybe do some recollection on what information you gathered from your interaction with them. But it has been, it is the information of the commission that the late Harrison Peno was the one who did the fatal blow to the president.
Well, my dear brother, if I see a man lying down on the ground dead and I shoot him, I shot the first shot and say I killed him. You can meet a man laying dead on the ground, you're the first to see him, and you fire a shot and say I the one who shot him. The man say, oh my son, I beg you. Anybody can tell folk tales, but the realities are there. I was close to almost every member of the PRC, including Samuel Doe. I mean, peace be to his ashes, but to be fair and frank, Samuel Doe was a personal friend of mine. So was Nicholas Podia. So was Thomas Wissen. And you all know, I think the day Wissen was arrested, Liberia know that me and him were in the car together. He was in my car with me when he was arrested. were coming from Buchanan from a football match that IE had played. At the time, I was the acting president for the Invisible 11 when Sam Bonner was locked up in jail. And that's how close I was to them. Abraham Colley and myself lived together. He lived in my mansion in Painesville with me there for years. The house I bought in New Jersey, Abraham Colley owned the house next to me. I bought it I bought that house for him. He sold it later on when things got bad, but we're neighbors. When he had an accident and broke his 2 legs, he lived in my house in New Jersey and was going to Hackensack Hospital. He lived there for almost a year taking treatment, to the extent that he even had a child, Alan Colley, by my maid who was looking after my children in America. Abraham Colley, he has a son who's in the U.S. Army now, Alan Colley, who he had by my maid while she was looking after him in New Jersey when he was sick. That's how close Abraham and I go. His family will tell you that all his daughters were on my scholarship. I sent them to school. Kebe and Seba, all of them are university graduates. They graduated under my foundation. That's how close I was to the PRC. And I talked to them, interacted with them, I traveled with them all the time, and I was interested in knowing how they sat down and planned a coup. And I took interest in it. I told you when the PRC government came into being, I was already a millionaire. I was a big man. I was not a small boy. I had graduated from the university. I had done my graduate program. I was senior vice president of the Insurance Company of Africa. And I had my own insurance company. So I was not a boy. I mean, they were attracted to me because I was wealthy and I could accommodate them. And so we became friends. And I was happy with the revolution because I was a revolutionary. I was against the Toba administration for years. I think you all know I was expelled from school. I was in the vanguard of the revolution. I wanted to see the rule by minority ended in Liberia. I was determined to do that. When Moja disappointed me and I found out that they could not do anything for themselves, I left them and joined the economic revolution. I was determined to make millions of dollars to be able to swerve the political process to where I wanted it. That has been my ambition all my life. And I succeeded to a large extent in doing that. So I was very close to the PRC members. I just say that to say how close I was to them and how we interacted. And if I wanted to extract any information from any of them, I could have extracted it. My information extracted, and I want to confirm that none of them ever sat down together to plan a coup d'etat. They met the president. Harrison Penny was the first to see the president do a jar, and he saw the president lying on a leopard skin with his hat halfway on his head and blood stain on the white suit he was wearing. That is the description that I got from the Penny himself many years ago. So if you told anybody, the image out there, he even had a car where he put a Chevrolet LTD, I think it belonged to Jimmy Pierre, LTD that he looted, and he put KT on it, killed Tobert. That was his license plate. If he say he killed Tobert, then we agree, but I know that he didn't tell me he did that. In private, because I tried to extract that information so many times out of several of them. And I didn't get the plan that they had. They never met before. They didn't even know each other prior to the time that they were on the council. That's the first thing. They had no there was no common ground where they ever sat down so say all of them knew each other or to plan or to plot anything. History must record that because that is the fact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You also said that most of the faction leaders who came to the TRC told lies, and they didn't speak of those who financed and supported their movement, especially some of them are now in government. And that, so I want us to focus on the NPFL, its support link, those who are currently in government and were financiers and supporters of the NPFL. You even said there are some people in government who supported all the warring factions. Could you speak to these?
Well, I told you there is a group of Liberian politicians today that have been part of every warring faction. They've been part of, if you want to get the type of the scenario of these people, look at the political parties. Look at the political party leaders. Look at the various transitional governments. It's easy to determine. It's easy. I don't know why you people have not researched. You have a lot of money and funding and thing, or ask for it so that you can do your research. If you want to know who was a supporter of a warring faction in Liberia? It is very simple. And I think you have to find some money to pay me as a consultant. I will help you out. Because I'm not doing this kind of thing for free. I'm not a philanthropist. Look, to analyze this is very simple. There have been 5 transitional governments, including the Bryan government. And in fact, that reminds me to come back to Councillor Stewart. The question you asked about John Autry. Autry was killed during the Judy Bryan administration, not during the Taylor administration. So you can correct that in your history. He was not killed during the Taylor administration. He was killed during the Judy Bryan administration. You see, when I leave from here, I don't go sleep. I go research. If you ask me a question I cannot answer, I will go back and think about it to come back to give you a proper answer. That is a responsible citizen. And not somebody who just think that he can wish-wash and whitewash anything and go. Now, if you want to know the supporters and perpetrators of each warring faction, it is easy. I will direct you to look at a roster. If you don't have it, you can ask some of us who attended all the conferences. You can see that those people who were nominated and appointed by those factions to serve the government as ministers, assistant ministers, managing directors, they are the supporters of those factions. So it's easy for you can get more information than I will stay there and elaborate. As soon as there's a peace conference, all the real supporters of the warring faction come to the peace conferences. Whether it was 5 times in Akusombo, 4 times in Accra, 6 times in Abuja, some people flew from the States. They were working in the States and other places, international organizations. They would leave their jobs and come to the Liberian peace conferences, and they came in to lobby for jobs. But if you do that, some of them will get in trouble because of their greed, because they were not part of the warring faction. Just when job came, they came and grabbed the people's job. So we call them part of that warring faction because you serve in their position. Isn't that fair? So you can get the leaders of all the warring factions, the participants and financiers of the warring parties and warring factions by looking at the various lists in the formulation of the positions and in the transitional governments. It's very easy to know. So I don't know why you people don't know them. I mean, you're asking me to come elaborate. I can do your work for you, my brother.
Are you acquainted with the ACDL, Association for Constitutional Democracy in Liberia?
What's AC? No, I don't know them. Can you just tell me more?
If you don't know, it's okay.
ACDL? No.
Okay.
No.
Then we'll move.
Okay, can you give me a detail on that? I'd like to have knowledge. I didn't come here. I want to learn too. What is it about?
The ACDL, I think, was a political pressure group in the U.S. at the time. If you don't know, you don't know, because it was very popular.
ACDL?
Yeah.
In the United States?
Yeah.
I never lived in America. I never lived in the United States. I own property and go there. My kids went to school there, but I never lived there for more than 2 months.
Okay, we had a witness who was one time managing director of Telecom, Joe Bada.
Yes.
He explained that as he inherited Telecom, it was a virtually dead place. And what we recall is that there was an emergence of cellular companies in Liberia, and simultaneous with that was the decline of Telecom. I'm wondering whether there was a policy considering Telecom obsolete, or there was a direct policy to support these cellular companies over and above LTC.
Well, no, I think it's an economic thing, and if any leader come into the country who has any economic sanity, they would try to scrap all these public corporations. They are white elephants. The LTC has been a dead organization for so many years. All they've been doing is collecting royalties and whatnot. They've been dead, and most of these things were killed by various transitional governments and various governments. As Telecom, once you put a new managing director there, he employed 50 new people, put them on the payroll. The corporation don't have the money to pay them. As a result, you have a backlog of overdue salaries and benefits to many Liberians who the government cannot pay, and the next government come in, do not honor it. I didn't do it, so I cannot pay the people. You have a lot of Liberians dissatisfied with this tendency because government is a going concern. And to come in even to cancel concession agreement is another problem again. And that's something you got to look at. You cannot come in when somebody has an agreement that is binding from one government to another because your government is new and you got your friends there, you want to give them a concession, so you cancel somebody on a concession issued by a legitimate government to try to give it to your friends there because you want kickbacks and other things or support. This thing has to stop in the country. That's what's happening with these public corporations. They all died a natural death. They are nothing but empty frames. They went along with the revolution and the war, and people started bringing new state-of-the-art technology. You think that Telecom can compete with Lone Star? Telecom is a little old day man, and so a young, vibrant young man with new technology and whatnot would knock him out of the way. Anyway, he's providing better service and better facilities. You want Telecom? Well, nobody using landline in the world again anyway, so Telecom is an empty shell. It's a toothless bulldog and a worthless corporation that should be closed down.
At the time, there were several cellular companies that came about. Icon, AWR now, LaborCell, and then of course the Lone Star. Did you have any interest, be it business interest or membership, board membership of any of them? And how well did these, or have these companies, I wouldn't speak of now because you're not in government, but how well did these companies serve the strategic interests of Liberia?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The TRC, you have a mandate to reconcile Liberian people and to tell us where we're coming from, what happened, and what do we do. Your mandate does not extend to know how much money I got or how much investment I got or where I put my money. That is my private business, and that is the business of my family and my bankers and whatnot. I don't think that I'm going to respond to whether I have interest in there, but I can assist you a little bit in giving you a notion. ICON was set up by some American guys and I think some Liberian on a joint venture. AWI was an American-based company from Connecticut that set up in Liberia, and they asked the Connecticut-based office wrote me a letter requesting me to become chairman of their board, and I served AWI as chairman of the board for a number of years until the company was ready to go and they sold their interest, and I bought some of the interest from their company. Basically, that is what happened. But they, and mind you, AWI never had a GSM license until Moses Black became president. That is the first thing that you have to know about that. But basically, I did not come here to give you my financial interest. I'm a well-off man. I've done well for myself, but I don't have to disclose that to anybody because the next thing you all want to do is to freeze my asset because you're looking for poor people. Anybody in Liberia who got a little money will bring him down. The crab in the barrel syndrome. Anybody who look like they got something, bring them down. Let all of us be poor. Let the country be poor. Let us go around begging and prostituting our country to international community to get a little money and kill our people to help them and to agree and all the kind of. I'm not into that kind of formula. Yeah, thank you.
Did you say ICON was a partnership with Americans and Liberians?
I think so, yeah, Joe. You can find out a little more about that. Mr. Chairman, I'm a bit disappointed that you guys have not researched properly as members of the TRC. I'm serious about what I'm saying. I don't mean any harm, but you have to do your job. You have to research properly. If you want to ask questions about a telecommunication company, you must have some documents. You must go to the Ministry of Commerce, ask the Director on Domestic Trade or the Minister in charge of that to give you business registration and have documents on when that company was incorporated. The articles of incorporation are at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They were probated. They are there. These documents are there. You must exert some effort to get paid. You cannot be sitting down drawing a check and doing nothing. You just can't do our question. You must go and research. If you wanted to know about the telecommunication company, you should have told me clearly in 1994 AWI was registered under such and such a name. The directors were Mr. A, B, and C. Do you have any further knowledge of that? ICON was registered in 1970 under the Business Registration Act of Liberia. The articles of incorporation was filed at the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on such and such a date. You must have the data. You are intellectuals. You are not people who are illiterate. You are intellectuals. You want an information, you know what ministry or agency to extract it from. Do not bore the audience with these kind of questions, Mr. Chairman. I beg you, let's go on.
We proceed. You've spoken at length.
Yeah, man, I'm tired with this thing.
You've spoken at length on multinational corporations, the role they should play, and the nature of partnership. I want to refer you to OTC. Is OTC one of those examples of a profitable partnership between multinational corporations and Liberian interests?
Yes, indeed. OTC was the best investment that have come into Liberia besides after LAMCO. The $33 million plywood and veneer plant, a state-of-the-art plywood and veneer plant that was manufactured exclusively for Liberia, a tropicalized industrial complex that was in the city of Buchanan. As you know, they employed thousands of Liberians and had the capacity. They had 8 lines, and only 2 of the lines were operating up at the time of the war. Liberians, in their desire to loot and vandalize, damaged that multi-million-dollar complex that could have employed thousands of Liberians today. But be that as it may, that was a substantial investment. OTC had regulations, and they had their standards. And the standards was Chinese. It was a Chinese-based company, and they had their standards from China. There was no way that they would cut corners or bend corners or give money for anything unless they had the proper documentation or representation. OTC had 585 yellow machines and 860 trucks, timber trucks. And the OTC was the company that I told you about that built all those roads from here to Greenville and the bridges and other things along with ITI, International Timber Industry. It was a very viable investment in this country that brought many Liberians to job, that brought a lot of revenue to the government to sustain itself, and created a Liberian-made product on the international market. You could see plywood and veneer that was made in Liberia for a number of years, and hundreds of thousands of metric tons of timber being exported from Liberian forests under an organized exportation system. OTC is an indication, a practical example of the quality of investment we need in our country and the nationality of the type of people that we need to deal with. Third world people that understand third world problem, and not Westerners who understand the bureaucratic of subjugating black people to slavery.
So what do you make of OTC's relationship with its employees, respect for their rights and all of those?
Well, I'll tell you, there's not a situation that is perfect. There's no situation that is perfect. OTC came into Liberia. They were not a philanthropic organization that came to divide money and give it to people. While I support the fact that Liberian employees must get the full benefit of their labor, and they must be given better working conditions and greater, and I was pushing for that too. The working conditions would have improved over the years. The people had just invested over $100 million in Liberia to build that plant and to buy the machines and whatnot, and they were basically in the process of setting up. So the benefits accrued to the Liberian population would have been better. Meanwhile, the government was sustaining itself and getting revenue from there. Roads were being built, an industrial complex were created. The clinic, the hospital in Buchanan was all right, and they were thinking about building other hospitals. They had built camps and all for residents, and intended to build more camps as the business grew on. Businesses do not begin to pay royalties and give gifts until they begin to make a profit. And OTC, we didn't see OTC making a profit within 3 years. It would have taken them 3.5 to 4 years, according to their directors, to amortize the $140 million investment they made in Liberia before Liberia actually began to benefit by way of employment, employees, and other things like that. But it was not a perfect situation, and no one can defend it as being perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chief Cyril Allen, thank you for coming to this commission and making your presentation, answering our questions, and at the same time advancing some recommendations. Now that
Thank you very much. I need to give you a few minutes just to deliberate on 1 or 2 issues. You know,
just a minute. Now that your testimony has ended, do you have any last word for the commission, the people of Liberia?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 or 3 things to say, and they are very important things, and I want to repeat them. They are repetition. I kept bringing them in as we went on with our issue. You see, I told you one of the important things, and I stress on this, is that you must get our traditional leaders who are in the majority to assist in this TRC thing. It's very important. The TRC must research and correct and reconcile many of the misrepresentation and incorrect concepts that witnesses testifying gave you here. Otherwise, your recording and your history will be conflicting. Foreigners and others reading it would not think that you did a good job. So you have to research, correct, and reconcile plenty of the misrepresentation that was given here. Another issue is Liberia should understand one thing, and I want to record that very, very clearly. If there's an element of witch hunt in the TRC, if, I'm giving a hypothetical, if there is or established an element of witch hunt in the TRC, it's a very dangerous precedent. It should stop. This is going to open up old wounds and lead to another cycle of violence. It is very important. People who play roles in this country, your friends, everybody know what other people did. When you start opening Pandora boxes here and acting like you clean and you got white sheet and whatnot, when you know somebody will open your back, like I heard that morning, Anthony Dempster Brown, I think he jumped on his friend Stewart and all that one there, start saying things. People should stop those kind of things. These are the things that are opening wounds in this country. People who were part and parcel of things that led to the hurt of other people should always try their best to make sure that you don't act like you didn't do it to them before they start feeling bad. You understand what I'm saying? These are very important things. Where your Marshal Andrew Dewey on the TRC, I don't know how he got here too, but you know, he has got plenty of problems with the maritime thing. They sacking for all kind of small registration, craft and all that. We know all of them from America, all those kind of things. You got to watch the quality of people that you put on this TRC before Liberian people begin to say that you're not serious. You got people that are tinted on this place, they're coming to Ireland, they're perfect, and try to give false impression and point fingers at other people for no reasons. Lastly, the last thing Charles Taylor told you when you were leaving here, they got the white cow, the red cow, and the black cow. The red cow that Charles Taylor, the red cow gone. The white cow and the black cow here. The black cow that the Liberian people. The white cow that the leadership of the country. Our friends then, they see old people now who say the red cow must go, they not jump up now, they say, oh, the white cow, you white. Stay far from the black cow, the Liberian people. Stay far from them. You white, you close to all we white too. So stay far when they come behind and tell Liberian people, that cow there too white, how the cow staying far from you also. When you look, the black cow will move far from the white cow and they will grab the white cow. And something will happen in our country. So we must take note of this and know. You cannot be so nice to me as to encourage me to treat my people bad. You cannot be putting on the squeeze until my people dislike me and confusion start in the country. People are very dissatisfied in this country. Many people cannot come up here and say it. I am the voice of the poor people. Liberian people are catching hell in this country and something must happen to lift them up. The psychology of Liberians in this country is something small spark of. This morning I came here 1 hour late. Coming on the Gardenersville Road, I mean everywhere you went people were vandalizing and the motorcycle people and the police in a row. You could not pass for hours and hours. Were in queues. Any little small thing in this country can spark up a high degree of violence. The next thing they will say, that opposition doing it, that people pushing people up to do it, they all will point their fingers at one group of people. Another thing we got to look at is the unmade people. We are here, you are here, we welcome you all, we like you all. You people came and saved our situation. But by no means will you use the clout of the international community under the umbrella of the United Nations Security Council to institute injustice in our country at any standard? It's unacceptable, and you better start looking at their Security Council resolutions on Liberia, opening the corridors for these sanctions to be lifted on our people to improve their lives, give the government a free hand to sign its contract and concession to start generating money for our people. This injustice thing that you all have with your travel ban and your asset freeze, your care out to quote and you got anything so that we can get out of this thing here and start to create jobs for our people and open up industries and factories like we know how to do. Nobody's going to live forever. Nobody lives forever, and rat trap is not for rat alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'd just like to, before you leave, just make one salient comment about the issue of research. The TRC is not a perfect institution. Notwithstanding, we do have a very vigorous inquiry process ongoing, and we encourage people to provide additional information on whatever they have. The Commission is not deceived. The Commission is doing its research. It has information. That is why we are calling people who can clarify. As you said, our country is rife with rumors, with lies, and all of those. And we thought it would be better if people can come out and we trash out the facts and the information through which we can ascertain the truth. One man's perspective of the truth is different from another person. But this being a national institution, we are anticipating that at the end of our work, we'll establish a universal truth of what transpired. We thank you very much. We're taking note of all of the recommendations, and we appreciate your coming. You may leave, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think I thought you were going to thank the audience and the people for being quiet and being disciplined for once. I think we could give
the audience have always been there.
Thank you very much.
Sometimes they go out of the way, but
ladies and
this is
gentlemen,
an interaction between you and the Commission. Thank you. No, we haven't been clapping. No, we can't clap. I mean, you're supposed to pass in front here. Oh, you always use the bathroom. And no picture. Okay, thank you. I see. Mr. Witness, we will move on to our next witness. Mr. Hearing Officer. You just have a statement to read when he reads it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.